This is Mrs. Maglinte. So today we're going to be painting some St. Johnswort flowers. And the St. Johnswort flowers look like this, and you might have seen the companion video that talks about where St. Johnswort grows, a little bit about the folklore and medicinal uses of St. Johnswort, and also how to harvest it. And the colors we're going to use today are the Stockmar watercolors. We're going to be using the lemon yellow, and we're going to be using the ultramarine blue, and we're also going to be using our flat brush or Peter paintbrush, our round brush or Tiny Tim, and then our detail brush. We also need to have perhaps a napkin to dry off our wet paper with, and then we need perhaps a washcloth to dry our brushes with. So these summer wet on wet painting lessons are not curriculum based, but they're suitable for many different ages, children as also adults. They're a nice family activity, and they're perfect for a homeschooling family or anyone interested in learning more about Waldorf wet on wet watercolor. So I like to pick St. Johnswort right around St. John's Day, which is June 24th. But at our house, it's still blooming, and it's July now. So you will have still a chance, I think, to pick some St. Johnswort if you like. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've been soaking my paper, and I usually like to soak my paper for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then let's dry it off. So we gently smooth it. So let's make sure that our flat brush is wet, and I always like to take a little bit of water off on the edges of the jar like that. And because the Stockmar colors tend to settle, I always like to give them a stir before I start. So here's the sun, and the St. Johnswort does tend to wait for the sun to come up before it starts to really start to grow and to produce flowers. So now we're going to rinse our brush, and we're just going to have water on our brush. So we're going to take a little off on the side, but not too much. And we're going to bring some water in here to kind of bring that color down a little bit more. And we're going to soften that edge a little bit. All right, and take a little water off on the sides of your jar, and let's dip in the blue. And this is going to represent the earth. So we always want to rinse off our brush and dry it on the towel before we set it down. Now we're going to take our round brush, make sure it's wet. We want to leave the water on it, and we're going to kind of bring with some water some of these little foliage and weeds and maybe the St. Johnswort leaves. We're going to bring those up. We want to add a little bit more water here. We want a really soft edge. You notice I keep rinsing out my brush when I have too much blue on it. Bring some of that water down into here. Okay, let's take some of the yellow and let's bring some of the grasses and the leaves of the St. Johnswort up. Now we're going to take our brush. We want to have a nice thin stroke, so we take a little bit off on the side here, like that, so we get a nice point. And let's bring one up right here in the middle. This will be the tallest one. And then let's bring one up here. If we press very lightly, the lighter you press, the narrower the distance between. And it'll be a thinner stem. This one's quite a bit thicker. Now, if we look at the St. Johnswort, can you see how the branches here kind of go out laterally and then they end with the flowers? So we're going to do that. So let's bring out, and they also are kind of together here. Sometimes I like to hold the St. Johnswort up, and then I can kind of get an idea of what's going on. It's always good when you're painting to have, I think, if you're painting flowers or even a rock, it's really nice to have the item with you when you're painting so you can take a look at it. Let's bring some of those down into here. And there's little tiny ones too. So you see now I've mixed it with the blue, and now look, I'm getting a beautiful green. Now I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to dip it in the blue. And again, I'm going to take some off on the sides like this. I'm going to stir it up from the bottom. I'm going to carefully take some off on the sides. And now we want to turn those yellow stems green. The way we do that is we put the blue right over the top of the yellow. And then go ahead and put those branches going out to the side. Light strokes so we can keep the branches narrow if possible. Because it's wet on wet, your color will run some, and that's part of the charm of it. Now, they're kind of ferny a little bit. I have a little too much paint on here. I'm gonna take a little off. Okay. Little dabbing strokes I think are good. We're just putting in the little ferny leaves. And, like I said, this is part of the charm of wet on wet watercolor, so it's not going to be hard-edged. You're just getting the feeling of it. The feeling of the plant. Okay, I'm going to take a little water off on my towel here, and now I'm going to dip into the yellow, but I think with just the tip. So I'm going to dry off my brush, and I'm going to dip the tip of it into the yellow, just like that. So, a St. Johnswort flower actually has 5 petals, but being that we're working wet on wet, it's probably going to move around a little bit. more yellow. Just a little dabbing motion works really well. So be sure to keep some of the flowers a little bit taller and some of them a little bit shorter. I got these pretty close to the same size, so I'm going to put some more flowers up in here. Nothing in nature is that regular. Everything is going to be organic shapes. Okay, now I'm going to take our brush and I'm rinsing it off, and again I'm going to dry it on my cloth, and now I'm going to lift out and I'm going to dry it. I'm going to lift out some shapes. This will make it look a little more interesting. Each time I have to dry it. Maybe take some down a little bit lower. Okay. Now we're just going to do a couple of little flowers. A couple more. And you can look on yours, look on your painting and see if you need a few more flowers or if you feel like you're complete. So also, if I've got something like this and I feel like it's too much color there, you see how with a damp brush I can lift that off if I want to. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take our brush handle and we're going to put our initials. So I hope you enjoyed doing this painting of the St. Johnswort flowers, and I will look forward to painting with you again. All right, bye-bye.